As we dig into the nitty-gritty of Julio Foolio's death, it's pretty hard to overlook how unbelievably dumb the crew behind his murder was. Seriously, it's like we're dealing with some of the dimmest bulbs in the box. Take Sean Gathright, for example, one of the shooters tied to Foolio's death. Folks are calling him the dumbest killer ever, and honestly, it's not hard to see why. He wasn't just involved in Foolio's death. Remember when Foolio got shot in the foot a few months back? There were even rumors that he might have to get his foot amputated. Well, guess who was behind that? Yep, Sean Gathright again. Here's the crazy part. This kid was only 17 when he put Foolio's foot in danger. Now you can see why the other suspects had beef with Foolio, but Gathwright's involvement makes no sense. This kid was just a cameraman, a dude who shot music videos. There's no real reason why he was going after Foolio. What's even weirder is that not only did he help take Foolio out, but he also shot him in the foot. So this guy was out there hunting Foolio down for apparently no reason at all. Gathright wasn't exactly part of any gang. He had no solid connections with the 1200 or ATK gangs, and we can't even figure out which crew he was supposed to be with. The whole thing is just bizarre, but it gets even crazier. What's dumber than getting tangled up in a beef you have no business in? How about using your mom's car for the dirty work? Yep, Gathright drove his mom's car all the way to Tampa to take out Foolio. You'd think if you're using your mom's car for something like that, you'd at least try to cover up the license plate, right? Nope, this kid didn't bother with any of that. He didn't cover the plate, didn't use a stolen car, nothing. Just rolled up in his mom's car with the plates out there for everyone to see. It's like the #1 rule of being a criminal is to not leave any trace, and he totally blew it. Here's the kicker though. What's even dumber than not covering the plates is what the cops found in his mom's car. Not only did Gathright use his mom's car for the hit, but he also left shell casings from the night he shot Foolio in the foot. And if that wasn't enough, there were shell casings in the car from another murder in May 2024. This kid was moving around the city like he was some kind of movie character, thinking he could do whatever he wanted with zero consequences. It's not a stretch to think Gathright might have been a hired gun, a paid shooter just going around on a spree. He had another shooting incident in Mississippi not too long ago too, so it looks like this kid was just out there firing shots left and right, without a care in the world. Maybe he thought he was untouchable since he got away with shooting Foolio in the foot, and then in another murder. He probably figured he was too slick to ever get caught. But that's not all. Apparently, Gathright even tried to pull a prison break by going through the ceiling. If you think Gathwright's actions were dumb, just wait until you hear about his accomplice. They took stupidity to a whole new level. Rumor has it, these killers are even starting to rat each other out. It's a total circus. Let's break down just how sloppy these guys were. Here's the deal. Isaiah Chance, Alicia Andrews, Sean Gathright, Davion Murphy, and Rashad Murphy, the crew behind Julio Foolio's murder. Their incompetence is almost laughable. They rolled into Tampa in 2 cars, a silver Chevy Cruze and a black Chevy Impala. Isaiah and Alicia were in the Cruze, while Sean was driving the Impala, which was registered to his mom. Honestly, it's no surprise they got caught. Tampa is packed with surveillance cameras, and they were caught in high definition multiple times, including during the murder itself. When they hit Tampa, the crew started tracking Julio Foolio, who had posted on Instagram that he'd be at Teaser's Gentleman's Club and Truth 18 nightclub. Isaiah and Alicia followed him in the silver Cruze, and every move they made was caught on camera at both clubs. Isaiah was spotted using Alicia's phone, and call records later confirmed he was in contact with Sean in the Impala with Rashad and Davion. The tension ramped up as the group tailed Julio to their final stop at Home 2 Suites. The crews did a few laps around Julio's car, signaling the Impala to move in. Once they were in position, Sean Gathright and the Murphys opened fire with a handgun and 2 rifles. Julio Foolio's car sped off, but the damage was already done. The shooters thought they'd pulled off the perfect crime, but they totally underestimated modern surveillance tech. After the shooting, the gang went back to their Airbnb, which they booked from June 22nd to 24th. The place had a Ring camera at the front door that caught all their movements. You could see Isaiah stepping out with a champagne flute, Davion carrying a bag, and the whole crew walking past the camera multiple times. Alicia was also caught on camera wearing the same clothes from the murder. All this footage was a goldmine for the investigators, helping them piece together what happened and who was involved. But the investigation didn't stop with the Airbnb footage. Detectives kept tracking Sean's movements. About 12 hours after the murder, Gathright showed up at a family member's house dressed in all black, just like in the surveillance footage. He went inside for a couple of hours, then came back out around 6:30 p.m. While chatting on his phone, Gathright was seen cleaning the exterior and interior door handles of his car with a rag. He also moved multiple bags into the garage, where a 2004 gold 4Runner was parked, then left in the 4Runner. That 4Runner turned out to be the group's downfall. It led the feds right to their doorstep. A few days later, Gathright was arrested while driving the 4Runner. Rumor has it Gathright might have flipped and snitched on his accomplices because, in less than a month, the cops managed to close in on all of them. There's a theory going around that Sean might have ratted on his crew, partly based on what went down just 3 days after Julio Foolio's murder. On June 26th, Jacksonville sheriff's deputies spotted a gold 4Runner speeding through the streets of Jacksonville. The car had heavily tinted windows, so it was tough to see who was inside. When the unmarked patrol vehicle turned on its lights, signaling the 4Runner to pull over, the driver complied, bringing the vehicle to a stop. Little did they know, this traffic stop would be a big step towards solving Foolio's death. As deputies approached, they immediately caught a strong smell of marijuana coming from the car. Sean denied having anything to do with it, but the deputies had enough probable cause to search the vehicle. They asked Sean to step out and stand by the back of the 4Runner while they gave the car a thorough search. What they found was pretty eye-opening. In the car, they discovered a small bag with marijuana residue and some mushrooms, but that was just the beginning. In the center console, they found a Glock 19, a semi-automatic pistol. The gun was a big red flag, but it got even more concerning when they checked the back seat and found several bags of ammunition and firearm parts. It was clear Sean wasn't just some ordinary teenager. He had a serious stash of weapons and ammo. Sean was arrested and taken to the Crime Gun Intelligence Center for questioning. The deputies were hoping this arrest might lead them to more answers in the case. Although Sean was released, he got nabbed again less than 24 hours later at a Jacksonville shopping center. That same day, law enforcement received a tip that really kicked the investigation into high gear. This new intel pointed to a murder conspiracy, and Sean's arrest was the key that opened up this lead. With this new information, the detectives got a search warrant and moved quickly. They focused on a house on Jacksonville's north side, where they believed Isaiah Chance and Alicia Andrews were holed up. The detectives surrounded the place and used a PA system to call out for them to surrender, spending 15 to 20 minutes trying to get them to come out peacefully. Eventually, Isaiah and Alicia were caught and taken into custody, which was a huge break in the case. With 3 suspects behind bars, the investigation was starting to come together, but there was still one more big player on the loose: Rashad Murphy. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, with help from the U.S. Marshals, tracked Rashad's movements and eventually found him at the Collins Preserve Apartments in the Ortega area of Jacksonville. The day after Isaiah and Alicia were arrested, SWAT units were sent to the apartments to find Rashad. They set up a perimeter around the place to make sure he couldn't escape. Reports soon came in that Rashad was barricaded inside the apartment, holding a gun to his head, and on FaceTime with his girlfriend, refusing to come out. After a tense standoff that lasted until just after midnight, Rashad finally gave up and surrendered, bringing this dramatic chapter to a close. Even before all the arrests happened, the suspects were already showing how clueless they were. Take Isaiah Chance, for instance. Just a few days after Julio Foolio's murder, while the police were scrambling for leads and evidence, Isaiah thought it'd be a smart move to drop some hints on a Twitter space. He hinted at catching a big fish, thinking he was clever enough to speak in code and not get caught. But let's be real, if online detectives can crack your code, then real cops and detectives definitely can too. It's like these guys were practically begging for attention, and they just couldn't keep their excitement in check. Now, if you thought Isaiah was dumb, wait until you hear about Rashad Murphy. You'd think someone in Rashad's position would be smart enough to cover their tracks, especially if they're driving from Tampa to Jacksonville after a hit. But Rashad did something that was the definition of reckless. Instead of laying low or setting up a solid alibi, Rashad put himself right in the middle of the action. How'd he manage that? Well, Rashad booked an Airbnb in Tampa, just a mile from where Julio was killed. And it gets even better. The Airbnb was in his name, and on his phone, they found a screenshot of the confirmation with his name on it. The confirmation message even included a photo of Rashad's Florida ID, proving he booked the place. The Airbnb was a townhouse, and the booking was from June 22nd to the 24th. This was crucial because it placed Rashad and the others in Tampa during the murder, and they were caught on camera at this Airbnb. They didn't just head back to Jacksonville right after the hit. Nope, they went back to their Tampa Airbnb and were caught on camera again, still wearing the same clothes they had on during the murder. This was all caught on a Ring camera at the front door of the Airbnb. Then there's Alicia Andrews, who, if you thought Rashad was a genius, proved you wrong. Instead of keeping a low profile, Alicia appeared in a music video with Youngin just 2 weeks after the murder. In the video, they mocked Julio Foolio's death. It's like she completely forgot she was one of the suspects in a high-profile murder case. She thought it was a good idea to celebrate Julio's death and make a mockery out of it all while being actively pursued by law enforcement. The irony is rich because once Alicia got caught, she started playing the naive card, claiming she didn't really know what was going on and that she was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But come on, if you're celebrating someone's death and flaunting it in a music video, you clearly knew what was happening and didn't care. But the drama surrounding the Foolio case just keeps getting juicier. Recently, some guy decided to make waves online by claiming he was the one who actually killed Foolio. And get this, he did it for $10,000. He even said that it was Jungan Ace who put out the bounty on Foolio. A lot of people are pointing fingers at Jungan Ace, thinking he might be involved somehow. But plenty of folks believe this guy is just chasing clout, making up stories for likes and views on social media. Seriously, how dumb do you have to be to post a video of your face and voice and basically confess to a murder? On top of all that, Foolio's driver sat down for an interview and spilled some tea on what was going on leading up to Foolio's death. He talked about how Foolio was being careless, at least from his point of view, and how he wasn't keeping his guard up like he should have. Even though Jacksonville and Tampa, Florida, are just a 3-hour drive apart, they saw Tampa as a chill spot, a place to unwind, relax, and not worry about anything. It was like a mini vacation, a break from all the drama back home. Being outside of Jacksonville, being in Tampa, felt like a place where you didn't have to look over your shoulder. But people are now saying if you've got that many enemies out there looking to take you out, it's probably not the smartest idea to be hanging out just a few hours away from them, acting like everything's cool. The driver also gave a pretty detailed account of what went down that night at the Holiday Inn. Well, actually next door to the Holiday Inn. He was the one behind the wheel. Foolio was riding shotgun, and there were a couple of others in the back seat. They were just sitting in the car, trying to figure out their next move, where to head to party. From the surveillance footage the cops released, you can see how the killers rolled up and got into position. It looked like they were trying to trap Foolio, setting up so that when they started shooting, they could box him in. And sure enough, when the shooting started, the car took off like a bat out of hell. Then there's this wild rumor floating around about Alicia Andrews. Some folks are saying that she was at an Airbnb after party with Foolio and that she's the one who leaked the location. But according to the driver, he never saw her there, and he has no idea where that story came from. But you know how it is. People are talking, saying that even if he did see her, he probably wouldn't admit it because that would make him a snitch. But the paperwork and the investigation do say that Alicia and her boyfriend Isaiah were tailing Foolio's crew, following them from spot to spot. It doesn't mention her being part of Foolio's entourage or giving away their location. But honestly, who knows at this point? It's wild to think about how these people have been gunning for Foolio for what feels like forever. Throughout his career, Foolio had faced multiple attempts on his life. In October 2023, he was shot in the foot in Jacksonville, Florida. This happened on the 3100 block of 18th Street West, a residential neighborhood less than a mile from a school. The black Dodge Challenger he was driving was riddled with bullets. Before that, in November 2021, he was targeted again. This time, it happened on the 2000 block of Ernest Street in Riverside. Foolio made the news for shooting back in self-defense and managing to escape. Shortly after, he went live on Instagram saying, "I shot back in self-defense. My gun is registered. And if I did something illegal, the police would have put me in jail." And they missed 100 shots, though. They must have thought I was lacking, for sure. Fans were used to Foolio going live after these incidents. In July 2020, after getting shot in Houston, he allegedly got hit in the buttocks and still went live on Instagram to update his fans. "I know y'all mad I ain't dead. I ain't mad I ain't dead on God." By 2023, Foolio had already survived public attempts on his life, with 2 of them leaving him injured. Fast forward to 2024, he had just turned 26 in June of 2024 and decided to celebrate by throwing a pool party. Naturally, he went on Instagram to share the location, letting his followers know where the party was at. But as the day progressed, things took a turn. According to his Instagram posts, it seems he had to switch locations to a Holiday Inn because, as one of his posts stated, the police had kicked him out of the original spot. It was confirmed that around 4:30 in the morning in Tampa Bay, Florida, Foolio was found shot, along with 3 other people. Tragically, Foolio, the 26-year-old rapper celebrating his birthday, didn't survive. After all those tries, they finally managed to get him. But luckily, his killers are now in custody and about to go to trial. All we can do now is wait and see how this whole thing plays out. Now, there is more to be said about Rashad Murphy, because here is where the murder motive might be hiding.
And the kids, please, like, tell them stop recording. I'm talking about the broadcast right now.
We finally have the motive for why Rashad Murphy got involved in the hit on Foolio. You might remember him as the guy who was arrested while holding a Bible. He even had his dog with him, which was a weird look. The whole thing felt premeditated, and if it's for revenge, it's clear-cut. Rashad Murphy had this strange way of showing he'd achieved his goal, saying his thirst was quenched in a text message. That's something he sent off Sean Gathriight's phone, but he was smart enough to leave his own phone behind to avoid tracking. So why did Rashad want to kill Foolio? It turns out Rashad is the older brother of Jared Adams, also known as 1200 Spaz, who was killed back in 2018 by Foolio's close associate, Robert Howard, aka Kenny Caps. Foolio had dissed Spaz in his music and even reportedly desecrated his grave. Rashad's mom was devastated by her son's death, and she saw videos of disrespectful acts at the gravesite, which fueled Rashad's desire for revenge. The whole situation is tragic and goes back to a cycle of disrespect and retaliation. Rashad might end up taking a plea deal to avoid the death penalty, possibly getting 20-30 years instead of life in prison or death row. There's tons of evidence and surveillance footage, and Alicia Andrews, another suspect, is cooperating with the police. The case is pretty solid, and it looks like Rashad and the others are in deep trouble. It's clear that this case is full of twists and turns. The evidence is stacking up, and with everyone from surveillance footage to witness statements in play, it's looking like things are closing in on them. Rest in peace to Foolio, and all the condolences go out to his family.